Greetings, greetings, greetings. It is I, your king, Clifford Jefferson, the reincarnation of King Edgar the Peaceful, known as Jesus Christ. I'm also represent Godfrey the Fifth Caliban Jew, son of folk of Jerusalem, father of John, the one who signed the Magna Carta in regards to the authority and laws under the charter, which were given to us, which we incorporated as the descendants as well as heirs successors of the House of Plantagenet and Gibeon, which was established by Godfrey the Fifth Caliban Jew. Along by my side is always unfailing is Archbishop Belmont from the House of Belmont, Core Judah, Bishop Murphy from the House of Murphy, Earl Esquire from the House of Esquire of Burgess, as well as our new students, Brother Gray, Brother Scott, and we got our soon-to-be Countess, Sister Walker from the House of Walker, and we're very proud of Sister Allen from the House of Allen. We appreciate her because she was the first soon-to-be Countess on the King's Bench, and if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have Sister Walker. We just give great honor to y'all. Did I address everyone on the platform today?
Yes.
Okay, welcome. This is part. This is two, or part three.
Part two.
Part two. This is part two of this beautiful lesson. All those who are viewing today, if you read the first part, the issue is in regards to ownership of land. And ownership of land, we call that real estate. Real estate is administered two ways: fee and simple and allodial. And if it's administered fee and simple, that means that it's being subjugated. If it's being administered allodial, then that means there must be some heir or successor. And whether it's being done administrated by what we call subjugation or what we call fee and simple or common recovery, or it's done by intel, which is based off allodial, which is done by overseers, which is also known as church wardens. We are church wardens for the English Church Church, incorporated as the English Church of England, King Heirs and Successors. We're here to reclaim our estate by acting on behalf of trustees, because whenever there's an estate, there must be someone to administer that estate on behalf of the beneficiaries, which are the heirs and successors, who are our posterity. We look forward to our obligation as trustees because it's been trusted to us by the grantor. We know that the grantor is the king. We know that there's been those who've been sitting on the throne, on the seat of the crown as the king of our posterity's ancestors, but they were not. But we give honor to those who did sit in those places and have preserved the historical laws in regards to our estate, so that it may be transferred according to operation of law via the common law of England. So with that, we get started on part two in regards to the vast territory, which is our estate, which is allodial, as established by the law. That you would get that nourishment in the middle temple, but right now we're in the inner temple. And the inner temple is the understanding your relationship to the history of the estate and left intel for you as an heir. And the only way that can be transferred by way of conveyance, in lieu of you being an heir, is by way of you being a part of this religious society, which trustees were incorporated pursuant to 16.1-28 of the Common Law Statute 16.1-28 of New Jersey Revised Statute. And that law clearly says that a right incorporated to act to incorporate trustees of religious societies, which is safe from repeal. This act was incorporated to incorporate religious trustees from religious society in regards to property that was transferred by way of conveyance, by way of civil incorporation to corporation place thereof. So most of our estate is being ran by corporations, because anytime you get a complaint in the mail, it ain't from no natural person, it's from a corporation. So if that's the case, then that corporation is soon to be the owner of the property. And if you're an owner, that means that you are the grantor. And if you're the grantor, that means that you're assuming to take the place of the minor, and that's not the case. So our obligation as trustee is to bring a claim of quiet title in lieu of a cloudy title. And a cloudy title is that was brought on the claimant who are assumed to have interest in the title, but not equitable. And the equitable title is challenged by way of challenging the clear title, which automatically is supposed to go back to the crown under what we call Torrance law. Torrance law is the land registration system that was set up to determine and decipher between which was a certificate of ownership by attorney and certificate of ownership going back to Torrance law system, which goes back to the crown. As we can see, we're going back into the time era of before America. In America, it was known as the United Colonies, was separated from Great Britain in 1783 by the Treaty of Great Britain. We know that there were prior treaties, and we know on Smith versus Alabama, Dartmouth versus College are absent of more rule contract rules. And we know contracts are agreements or covenants that were made with by grantees and grantors on behalf of the beneficiaries who are assumed to be heirs and successors. But the problem is that as a result of those wars that transpired through the time era, which was explained in part one, somehow the heirs got exchanged for somebody who are foreigners. And this leads us back to the rabbit hole, which starts in 1763. 1763 was the territory that was ceded from Spain and France, as you see on the map. Spain, you don't see France yet. Spain, the first inhabitant of Spain here in North America, this is down from Louis XIII. And Spain starts with Charles I from the House of Castile. And as you can see, Spain goes back to the treaties made with Anglo-Saxons in 1373 by the alliance, which at one time was a peaceful alliance, because in England there was no slavery. But we know as a result of mercantilism and capitalism and feudalism, we know that nickel black colored in the Ethiopians was a hot product. And we established that by all the companies that were established by the colony, through Virginia Colony, the South Sea Bubble Company, as well as all those other companies that you see one in the day, which came in ownership of our vast estate in lieu of being simple, not an entail, because they're not heirs. But therefore, because that colony title, we can't see the day of light. You know what I'm saying? And for those who are tuning in today, that light has come. As we know in the abstract story, Jesus coming in the cloud, and so that those who are not able to see will see the sun coming on the cloud and removing that cloudy title on their vast estate and returning it back to those under the legal authority as established by the law. And we know the law is the common law of England that was here with the establishment of England that goes back to time immemorial. So once again, for all those who got their listening caps on, please pay attention, because if you're not, then you'll forever be cast out of the empire, which is what they now call America, which we know through the French and Indian War, Spain and France was fighting over, which goes back, as we said, to the war of the 100-Year War of the Plantation Crown and the House of Berlioz, in which Charles I and Louis XIII descended down from. So for all those who don't understand what I'm saying, I suggest you stop this video and go back and do your research, because if you don't know that, you will be lost up to this point. The last video, we showed you the 1763 Treaty of Paris, when all that was governed territories underneath those colonies or settlements or plantations was surrendered back to Great Britain. We know Great Britain was only here by way of a grant as well. And that grant was established by the Settlement Act of 1701, which for all those Roman Catholic, all those who were Roman Catholics who broke away from the Anglican Protestant houses, well, now those colonists and Protestants who now colonized North America as settlers. And the contracting laws that were governed at that particular time, via the Constitution, which is a charter, is now the government was never meant to be a government. It was only the authority granting the power and authority derived from the source, which was the grantor. And at this time, the grantor during the time era of 1763 were, as we said, de facto monarch under one parliament from England, Great Britain, Spain, and France. And as you can see, you see a time span of 1762 to 800. And as you can see on the map, the governing territories are governed by Spain, which governs the argument brought forth by Portugal and Spain, which goes back to the Anglo Alliance of 1373. Because we know, as we are told today, Anglo and Spain and Portugal is associated with the European continent. And we're not on the European continent, but yet these European kings are ruling over here in what we call North America. So in order for you to understand what went over there, you must understand what went over here. Follow back to this time, to the timetable or the time chart or your calendar. And as we said, we're in the time era of 1762. And we know that Charles I and Henry Louis XIII descended down from the House of Burgundy and the House of Capet, which are all houses that descend from the House of Berlioz, going back to the 100-Year War. And we know that the 100-Year War were English monarchs at that particular time, which went on down to what we call the Anglo and Portugal's alliance in 1373, which took place here. It didn't happen over there. It happened here. Because how could you have an alliance in 1373 and then you have a succession of the territory in regards to that alliance here in 1762? Something don't make sense. So y'all put on y'all thinking caps, y'all, because we about to show you what's going on. It was simply a transfer of debt. A transfer of debt in lieu of what we read, in lieu of the reform in regards to that which stemmed from the ruling monarchs under the parliament, which was the government, stemmed from the Magna Carta, under the John who signed the Magna Carta, son of Henry II, son of Godfrey the Fifth Caliban Jew, which my family surname goes back to, under Godfrey the Fifth Caliban Jew, the son of folk, ruler of Jerusalem, which the garden city, what we call New Jersey, is named after. Because New Jersey was called Jersey under the flag you see behind those sitting on the King's Bench today for all those who will be on this podcast. So without further ado, I give Archbishop, I give C a couple of minutes, a couple of seconds, say a couple of words, and we can get on with this marvelous lesson. Archbishop.
Greetings again, brothers and sisters from the Kingdom of England, Empire Bow Beyond. This is part 2 from another beautiful lesson to sum up our vast estate and what's required for us as English heirs to be able to inherit and take control over it. And you know, many brothers and sisters keep saying that they want to take on of a estate that their ancestors gave them, but there's only one way for you to do so. And you have to come back to the kingdom or the nation that those estates were originally given to. So, you know, like the king said, put on those thinking caps, get your pens, get your paper ready, you know, whatever beverage you need, because you're definitely going to be parched after this lesson, but it's going to be worth it because, you know, like we said, it's better to know this than to know this and not do anything. Better not to know this than to know this and not do anything with it. So I digress and I leave the rest of the introduction to CA as well to our fellow brothers and sisters here on the King's Bench.
Gratitude, Archbishop. Thank you for the floor. This is your noble CA Murphy from the House of Murphy. I just want to qualify, you know, the lesson we're learning today. When we're talking about estate, the highest form of ownership being entail, and your inheritance via your vast estate will only be recognized through your equitable inheritance by a lawful court. So understanding your relationship to the history applicable. We talk about Louisiana and how it became under the Spanish and French, the wars, 100-Year Wars on into the French and Indian War, modern time, and the correlation of the transfer of estate because of said occupational ownership or intel estate. It all is in relation to what we're gathering today. So I yield the floor to this marvelous lesson. I got my notes ready and looking forward to all those at the sound of our voice to commune with us while we digest this this noble information from our King Archbishop in the panel. I yield.
Well said, CA, called Judah. I give honor to my best friend, Coco. You know, he's sitting in his cage with a little ball, you know, giving me my time. You know what I'm saying? He let me know I'm waiting over before you pop. I got you. Don't worry about it. You know what I'm saying? Looking at me, that's my man. All right, so I give honor to all those at the sound of my voice. It is your King again, and good introduction from the trustees of the King's Bench. We know that we got a lot of heirs and successors who are heirs to their estates in the King's Dominion as well as Kingdom and Empire. And I honor you all in regards to the reviewing of this lesson in regards to y'all taking y'all place amongst the affairs of man and woman in regards to becoming trustees yourself. by way of grasping this legal concept and understanding in regards to ownership of property, of how it should be owned, by way of it being granted by the grantor, which we know is a monarch. And we know that the monarch can only speak in the interest of his subjects and people. And, you know, and as we've read through the Reform Act that was established by those monarchs at that time in 1763, there were reforms done under debt instruments, because we know in all governments there must be funding. You know, funding is how things get to moving. And, you know, and as a religious society, we're not able to move and function as a government because we have no funding. And we know that it takes finance to lift a nation, and all around the world we see nations functioning off what we call money. You know what I'm saying? And one is left to assume that that's how it's supposed to be functioned, and not knowingly ill-wisely realizing from today's lesson is that the reason why we're not funded as a nation as a result of how it's being funded in the present day. And we talk about the whole world. So with this information, you'll be able to get your house in order in regards to it being funded properly, in regards to how those who are supposed to be overseers of our assets, which was left in an estate as for us as trusteeship in regards to the administration of the assets, which were left for the beneficiaries, which were the heirs and successors. And as a result of that, as trustees incorporated by way of our certificate of incorporation, we are able to remove those as assumed trustees, which is why we got you here today, because you're going to speak on behalf of your estates that was left for your heirs and successors that were given to you by a grant by the monarch, i.e. the grantor, right? So, and this is giving you the authority to get that back by understanding the territory that belongs to you. And we're taking it back to a time called time immemorial. And the time immemorial goes to a time where he wasn't. So anytime you can go to where he ain't, that's a great place to start. All right. And we rather not start in the place where we wasn't, you know, because then nobody got an argument, you know, and majority of the time, 99% of the time, that's the argument. Everybody claiming to have an interest in the state where nobody can even prove it was around when that state was created. So failure to know that is a result of esteatment. It is steeped back to the sovereign power because of discovery. If you can't discover your own history, then what is there to discover? You know, and the discovery is not finding something new. Because when you discover something, is it new? No, it's old. It is old when you discover something. It ain't like it just popped up on the scene. It's been here. All right, let's go. As you can see, the Spanish Louisiana map from 1762 to 1800 covers the span of from the East Coast and the West Coast. We know that the West Coast was considered Albion of the West by Francis Drake, who was under authority of Elizabeth I, who was descended from the House of Tudors under Henry VIII, who was the son of Henry VII, who usurped by way of conquest the House of Plantagenet, which was broken into what we call the cadet branches of the Yorks and Lancasters through the infiltration of those usurpation that was done by the usurpation of the House of Edward III through John Gaunt. All right, Edward III and John Gaunt. All right, we see Spain, and we see Great Britain. You see Great Britain, and then you see the 13 colonies. All right. Now we know that Great Britain was established in 1707. Okay, that's when all the kingdoms, Ireland, it became the Department of Great Britain. Can anybody agree?
Agreed.
But you see on this map, it says Great Britain here too. All right. So if it's over here, and the departments of England, Ireland, and Scotland, which became constituent together, that means that all the authority that was transferred in the original corporation transferred to the new one, which are now constituent corporations now, with the same rights, powers, immunities, exemptions, franchise, etc. So now the powers that were inherited from the mother company, they now have. So now if we see Spain is not the mother company in regards to Great Britain, because Great Britain goes back to Albion.
Mm-hmm.
And we know Albion covers everything from the West Coast under Francis Drake and everything on the East Coast from what we call Edmund Ploden. Because Edmund Ploden established what we call the Albion colony on the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
And that was established before George Carteret and John Berkeley, which was the proprietors who got the land from the grant from one of the miners of the House of Stores. And they just authority back to the crown in 1702, the Queen Anne. So now we see that the proprietors, King George and George Carteret, who got a grant from the minor, surrendered their authority back to the crown in 1702. We see that Spain, which consists of France and Spain, succeeded all their authority back to who? The crown. In what? 1763. Now tell me I ain't bad a king. Tell me I'm not a bad king. Tell me I'm not.
That's lethal.
All the information been there. Ain't nobody able to break that down. I ain't got a book in front of me.
Hey, look, point of interest, King. Just to camel back on that, remember Spain was under de facto monarchy, so them bidding over a territory was at this point absurd. So this is why they were seeking to marry into English house, and all of it goes back to the crown. But I'm just making that point that they were already a de facto monarch as a worldview, having purchased their monarchy, and now they're bidding for and warring over land. Come on, man. McDonald's better get up out of here.
Yeah, because remember, it was the French and Indian War. I didn't say Spain and Indian War, did it? It said the French and Indian War was a result of the Stamp Act and the Currency Act of 1764 and 1765. You surrendered everything back to Great Britain in 1763. But you don't see France here. You see Spain. Now go to the next map. All of a sudden now you got France on the scene. And you don't see Great Britain anymore. You see the United States. Now what's wrong with that? Now from 1762 to 1800. Now from 1800 to 1803. Now you got, it was Spain, Great Britain, and the 13 colonies. Now you got Spain, France, and United States. But yet, you didn't get the United States until you got the French and Indian War, which was not with English people. It was not with British subjects. It was with Indians. So now where did Indians come from? Where did they come from? Because we know Spain and Portugal goes back to the Anglo Alliance. It's just Anglo and French. It's Anglo-Spear, Anglo-America. Now let's really blow their mind now. Why? Unshare your screen. Sister Alan, good to see you. Make it to class. I don't think you caught this particular part of this, but I want to read this again.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sister. Reform and resistance. The origins of the American Revolution are traceable far back into Anglo-American history. As I told the bench, there's a problem with that because Anglo goes back to time immemorial and America goes back to the present. Now, those maps, you didn't see anything saying anything about America, did you? It says Great Britain, the 13 colonies, Spain, and France. So where is America in this if there's only Great Britain, Spain, France, and the 13 colonies? Because you didn't get America until you got the 13 colonies. Right? And we know Anglo goes back to time immemorial. So that means that they had to have the land longer than the Americans, because before the Americans were here, you had colonies. And before you had the colonies, you had those dealing with France and Spain, and France and Spain shifted everything back to England. That makes sense?
Yep.
All right. You caught up, Sister Erica?
Yes, I'm caught up. Thank you, King.
Okay. One more thing. Right here. The British government instituted a series of reforms in the revenue service and the commercial code to curtail rampant American smuggling. They said American smuggling. Right? Now, let's go back to the top. You're talking about American colonies. You ain't dealing with states. They are. All right. You ain't dealing with states. You're dealing with American colonies. They got the nerve to call it America, and America was never around with the colonies. We just showed y'all a map, y'all. It said British, Spain, France, and the 13 colonies. They didn't say nothing about America, but yet you got an article with the American Revolution because it shows you from 1800 to 1803, then you have Spain, France, and the United States. And there will be no United States without the Treaty of Paris, 1783. But we're going back to 1783. This is the origin of the American Anglo Revolution are traceable, meaning that for all those who are in serious indulgence about their history in regards to their birthright, you better go way back British history. You better go back to Anglo, because Anglos go back to time immemorial. Richard II, 1189, okay? All right, and if that's the case, and it said heirs to the English political tradition embodied in the Magna Carta and the Bill of Rights and expressed in the Civil War and the Glorious Revolution, the colonial Americans cherished the concept of representative governments and civil liberties and the rights of revolution. Moreover, Americans were not a colonial people. They were not conquered subjects, but free men, mostly British. They ain't talking about English people. That's talking about British people came to English rights, who for a variety of reasons removed to North America, meaning they settled there, and transplanted the basic heritage of their homeland, meaning that they were never English ancestors because you never came from England. Why? Because you were standing in England already. So you brought your practice with you. They were not conquered subjects but free men who, with a variety of reasons, removed to North America and transmitted their basic rights and heritage of their homeland. They were not subjugated except for the Africans, but guaranteed the traditional political rights of Englishmen and nurtured in their economic development by a remarkable, benign imperial administration. So that sounds straight like slave trading right there of the English people by British people who came here and brought over their religious faith, which was not the faith of that of English people. This is the reason why if you held in the seat of any franchise, you had to take a sacrament test.
Yes. Yes.
You had to take it. They stopped it. Why? Because they're now called United States.
Yep.
They ain't
Separation.
colonies no more. So the contract or the covenant held under that agreement, i.e. charter, was broken. All right? It says they were not subjugated except for Africans, but let me see, I want to go a little further. All right, here.
You'll see this in those movies like The Patriot.
Yep.
Yes. Because they told you in The Patriot, oh, we were free men. He said, well, if you fight for King George, you ain't free. That's basically what he said. If you fight for Great Britain, you're not free. As he just said there. Because they were slaves and indentured servants of those colonists who came here. But they were saying, we've been here. We ain't colonists, we've been here. Well, you ain't considered an Englishman under the mind of a Great Britain. Why? Because Great Britain was practicing slavery under the mind of the British monarch system. Which you were, as I just said, Africans were slaves, but the British were not. They were considered free men.
Because the British were enslaving the English.
I'm not making this up, y'all. Y'all read it for yourself. This is the British government instituted a series of reforms and revenue services in the commercial code to curtail rampant American smuggling. Extensive New Jersey trade with the enemy during the war prompted a brief naval blockade of the colony in 1758. And to facilitate the collection of custom duties extended to 751 prohibited the New England, i.e. Massachusetts, which was one of the colonies, it was the northern colonies. It said prohibition of New England legal tender to the rest of the American through the Currency Act of 1764 to counter colonial monetary malpractice, curb spiraling inflation caused by wartime emissions of currency, and stabilize the exchange rate between provincial paper money and the British pound sterling. You hear that? So there was a difference between colonial money and England money.
Yep.
All right? They didn't want to use English money, so this was called the Revolutionary War. How do you know that? Let's get to it. This is going to be the baddest thing y'all ever. First of all, I'm going to show the penalty for using this money.
Yep.
Point of interest, King. This is This is a history lesson that you did not get taught in your public schools or universities. This is the so this this is everybody has a post-colonial Civil War education, but like this education of the common law of England or just the history of law is so applicable because it deals with your estate and we all know, right, is status, jurisdiction, adjudication, right? Status, what's your status, right? Status, jurisdiction, adjudication. So if they don't have, see, they always do nisi prius and assume jurisdiction because they already assume that you Negro, black, or colored. Well, there ain't no assumption here. I'm the Englishman, freeman, Anglo-Saxon, Berber, but that's the difference. You see, it connect yourself to your hair because your surname describes who you are in your inheritance, whether you were born in a different territory or not, your allegiance. But here, when you have the France, Catholic, Spain, all of these different new nations, these are new nations coming into play. They're destroying monarchies and giving you states. And now they're trying to estate your claim over here in New England, as it were. I yield the floor.
Well said, CA. Well said. Any other input anybody would like to make?
Once again, I mean, it just goes to show you that they never had any money to begin with. And if they didn't have any money to begin with, they can never pay you anything. They can pay you what they don't have. So if they can't pay you what they don't have, then that means that they needed you to accept that. Only way for them to get you to accept that, like CA said, they had to reprogram you. This is what those what they call those
reprimanders,
retraining camps, or what it was another name they were calling them after I can't remember the name of it, but when they start coming up with all these new schools, it was really to pretty much try to teach you the new curriculum so that way it can keep you in a treasonous position. Remember, for them to continue to keep their fraud going, they need you to be accomplice of it.
Well said, Archbishop. All right, let's get to the nitty gritty. As we read in the Reform about that the Massachusetts, New England was using funny money. You know what I'm saying? That's like the monopoly. Corporations run like a monopoly. And the monopoly is on the land, which is the monopoly board. Right? That's a monopoly board. And the monopoly board is manned by corporations. Right? And if you don't act as a corporation and don't pay your dues, what happens? You go to jail. All right? And you must post bail. That's called a bill of Middlesex. A bill of Middlesex is the bill in lieu of trespassing. You trespass and they charge you with a fine. That's called courts of common pleas, which deal with civil and criminal matters where they charge you fees for the king. And the courts are extra chambers for collecting the fees for the king. But there is no king. Why? Because America works off capitalism and feudalism, which is a violation of law because the law says you're not supposed to do that. And that goes back to the Stamp Act. Sister Allen, Allen, read this.
You muted, sister.
Sorry. Stamp Act of 1765. The Stamp Act of 1765. Oh.
I'm sorry, I got too much.
That's okay.
All right.
Change my view.
I got 400. I'm going up and up. Hold on.
No, you're good. Yeah, about the 150s normally good.
Can they see that?
Yeah, no, that's good. Perfect.
Yes.
All right.
Stamp Act of 1765 was an act of the Parliament of Great Britain, which imposed.
Read that short title up there.
The short title, Duties in the American Colonies Act 1765, 5 George III, C12.
Stop right there. So it's a duty. You know what I'm saying? This is an encumbrance. This is a duty. You ain't got no say so. You see in quotations, duties in the American colonies. You ain't got no freedom there. You are obligated. Yeah, you can be treated like a free man, but you still like God encompasses. Archbishop?
And that'll be our 30 minutes for part 2.
Yes, it's about to get good, boy. See, that's one thing I love about